These are some of the most terrifying things ever filmed beneath the waves. From long-lost underwater cities to strange, and sometimes humanoid, creatures lurking in the depths, the ocean hides more than we can imagine. With that in mind, here are 15 of the most disturbing underwater videos ever captured. Number 15. Diver escapes shark attack. If you just gasped, then that was also our exact reaction. Imagine diving in the deep dark sea when you start to feel like you are being watched. It is obviously not by another human because who could be lurking for that long? So you turn around to see what is watching you, and right there before you is a shark. It sounds like the plot of a movie about sharks, but that is far from what is going on here. This diver decided to show off his skills and just enjoy the water when he felt something looking at him in the shadows. He ignored it and continued his journey, but the creature didn't ignore him. Instead, it started coming closer, and that was when the diver realized that it was a shark. In the blink of an eye, the shark approached him with speed and attempted to bite him, but it was only an attempt because the diver had fast reflexes. He quickly did the shark maneuver and injured the shark just enough to get it off him. The shark swam back and the diver made it to the surface unharmed. But if this video hadn't been recorded, do you think anyone would have believed the diver just based on his story alone? Many people would assume he's trying to look cool and never take him seriously again. Number 14. The mystery underneath. Too many times we as humans always poke around in places and things that do not concern us. We sometimes even go as far as trying to discover what was never missing, and it's because of this attitude that something sinister was discovered underwater. Back in 2007, Shell Corporation wanted to find a new source of oil, so they decided to dig the ocean floor in Houston on the Gulf of Mexico. The game plan was fairly simple. Use a drone to map out 20,000 feet deep into the ocean to find where it was best to drill for oil. It was when this expedition started that they realized maybe it wasn't a good idea. As the drone started to map out the ocean floor, a strange creature passed by. What even is that? It looked like a squid, but it also didn't have all the features of a squid. It also looked like an octopus, but didn't have all the features of an octopus. The presence of this strange creature soon spread panic in Houston and across America. People were wondering if it was an alien sent to monitor Earth or if it was an undiscovered species and what could be lying underneath. Scientists have since been studying what kind of creature Shell discovered. They have not been able to come up with a lot of answers, but one thing they did was give it a name: the big fin squid. Almost nothing is known about these creatures, not even their feeding habit, but it has been deduced that they likely use their long tentacles to drag themselves along the ocean floor and pick up organisms like zooplankton to eat. So relax, because you are definitely not their target. And if this makes you scared. Number 13. Mysterious eel in the Red Sea. Let's take a trip to the Red Sea. What you are looking at right now are not crops sprouting from the ground of the seafloor. These are eels in the Red Sea. Eels are usually known to enjoy exploring and floating from one spot to another, but these ones spotted by divers in the Red Sea exhibited a rather unusual behavior. They anchored themselves to the ground in a group of over 100 and just stayed still. The movement you see was caused by the current of the water moving through them. With their lack of movement, it seemed like they were meditating. But why were they exhibiting such strange behaviors? Were they hiding from something, or were they working on something? If your guess was that they are hiding from something, then you would be correct. They use their mucus to anchor themselves to the ground. Then, whenever predators are in the environment, they go deeper in the sand, completely hiding. But if you ever come across them, just go the other way and leave them undisturbed. Away from strange creatures, humans have had strange encounters in the sea that no one would have believed if they weren't caught on camera. Number 12. Deep sea alien. This creature you see is not something out of a sci-fi movie. It is a real creature recorded by scientists. A group of scientists went over 7,000 feet deep in the Java Trench. Just like other scientists, they were just trying to discover something new. They were well aware that they were going to see some strange creatures in the abyss, but nothing could have prepared them or the world for what they found. At first glance, it looked like a balloon that had somehow survived and found its way to the deepest point in the Indian Ocean. But as it rolls out of the darkness into the light, you start to realize that it is anything but artificial. To the scientists who discovered it, they initially thought it was artificial until they realized it was real and alive. They first thought it was a jellyfish because of its body and tentacles, but sometimes we tend to interpret new information based on old knowledge, and that seemed to be the mistake these scientists were making. As science expects, they had to investigate further and realized that they were looking at a tunicate, which is a kind of sea squirt. This particular one was called an ascidian. Now, the normal typical video of ascidians is to be anchored to the sea floor through their tentacles, but the one they found was floating through the sea with its tentacles unanchored. It was filtering food from the water, which was an unusual behavior for it, so they concluded that it was a new species that had not been seen before. But what if it's not a new species? What if the older species have evolved and we are just finding out? And we are not even close to the end of the weirdest creatures captured underwater. Now it's time for today's topic. In 2023, a deep-sea salvage operation off the coast of South Africa's Agulhas Bank took a terrifying turn. The crew of the research vessel Blue Marlin contracted to recover parts of a 1940 shipwreck nearly 1,200 feet below sea level, reported encountering what they described as the largest living creature they had ever seen. The divers, led by marine engineer Liam Carter and oceanographer Dr. Helena Voss, were using remote submersibles when the sonar began picking up an enormous moving object, roughly the size of a cargo ship. Moments later, the submersible's external camera captured chilling footage, a massive shark-like figure slowly circling the wreck. Its jaws alone appeared to span over 10 feet wide, with scars and deep markings across its body, as if it had survived battles older than the wreck itself. The team's systems began malfunctioning, likely due to pressure waves from the creature's movement. The Blue Marlin was forced to abort the mission after one of the divers reported violent tremors shaking the sub as the massive shape passed beneath them. Experts reviewing the footage are divided. Some claim it's a giant great white magnified by distortion, while others at OceanX believe it could be evidence that the megalodon, the ancient apex predator, may still be lurking in Earth's unexplored depths. Number 10. Strange creature in Sagami Bay. And now we take a trip to Sagami Bay in Japan, where scientists found a strange creature lurking in the dark. A group of Japanese scientists decided to go on an expedition in Sagami Bay where they were planning to go just 33 feet deep in the water. They weren't in search of something new and weren't planning to see anything strange. All they wanted to do was study the corals in the bay. But something else also wanted to be studied. In the murky waters, scientists discovered what seemed to be a whale, but its features didn't seem like a whale's. In fact, it could have been a mistake on the scientists' part to even assume what they saw was a whale. This creature had a large head that was bigger than its body, so starting off its body proportions were already out of shape. It also had ghostly white eyes and a thin line across its face that seemed like a smile when you looked closer. Imagine just going about your job and stumbling upon this creepy-looking creature. It's a surprise that the researchers were able to record long enough to capture its facial expression, considering that it didn't swim away at the sight of humans. Do you think the creature had plans to do something scary to the researchers, or was it blind, seeing that it had ghostly white eyes? What would even be a potential name for this kind of creature? And although the existence of this creature is scary, nothing would prepare you for this next disturbing clip. Number 9. Stonehenge in Lake Michigan. I'm on a quest to investigate a mysterious pattern of rocks discovered under Lake Michigan that some are calling America's underwater Stonehenge. There are all kinds of things found underwater: strange creatures, old cars, and even carcasses. But certain underwater findings make us question all of history and just how much we don't know of the people that have gone before us. This structure that was found under Lake Michigan is a perfect example of that. Sometime in 2017, an archaeologist set out to find a Stonehenge that was buried underwater in Lake Michigan. Most of the recent knowledge we have on Stonehenges are from the ones in England, but when the ones found under Lake Michigan turned out to even be older than modern-day England, scientists realized they were dealing with more than they had bargained for. So if you know anything about Stonehenges, it's that they are man-made. Each rock in a Stonehenge weighs over 50 tons and are stacked on top of each other, but the origin of these stones in Lake Michigan is less obvious. While they do seem to form a perfect geometric shape, they aren't stacked or connected in the same way. However, the ones in Lake Michigan were not stacked on top of each other even though they formed a perfect geometric shape. Further investigation of the rocks revealed that they were more than 10,000 years old. It turns out that the area where Lake Michigan is located was once dry land. Native Americans used to live there, and it's possible that the Stonehenge was built with some sort of cultural significance. But just like many things in the world, some scientists have argued that the stones have no historic or cultural significance. They believe the stones just happened to coincidentally form that shape. There was no deeper meaning to it. What do you think? Was the Stonehenge really placed there by humans, or did waves in the water just bring random stones together to form a Stonehenge? Number 8. Mysterious plane in Lake Norman. This is an abandoned plane in Lake Norman. While it is not strange to find abandoned aircrafts underwater, how this one got here is rather strange and disturbing. In 2013, authorities discovered a plane deep in Lake Norman in South Carolina using sonar technology. It was scary and strange not because they weren't expecting a plane to be there, but because they didn't know how it got there. Divers who went down to inspect the wreck described it as eerily intact. The cockpit glass was unbroken, and the seats were still bolted in place, yet there was no sign of human presence. Serial numbers on the fuselage didn't match any aircraft currently on record with the FAA, which only deepened the mystery. Even more unsettling, parts of the plane's interior appeared newer than its exterior, suggesting that it might have been refurbished or repainted before its disappearance. Locals began to recall rumors of a mysterious aircraft seen flying low over the lake one foggy night years before, but no radar logs ever confirmed such a flight. Some conspiracy theorists speculated that it could have been part of a covert operation or a smuggling mission gone wrong, while others believed the plane was deliberately dumped to conceal evidence of another crime. Strangely enough, the flight instruments inside the cockpit were all set to neutral positions, as if the plane had landed softly in the water instead of crashing. Investigators brought in aviation experts who determined that the plane showed no signs of impact damage, making the discovery even more perplexing. Before planes crash, they usually reach out for help, and signals that the plane is in trouble is sent to a control center. But for this plane, there was no record of it ever going missing or even taking off in the first place. So authorities quickly started investigating, hoping to find any sign of life that may have been on the plane. But to their surprise and dismay, there was no sign of life on the plane. No sign of a passenger or even a pilot. And before you say, what if their bodies have decomposed and remains have been carried away by the current? Stop. You would most likely be wrong. If a person you know went on a flight and never got to their destination, wouldn't you report them missing? Exactly. There were no reports relating to that flight, and nobody knows how it got there. Was it automatically controlled until it got there? How was the whole flight and nobody knew? Or did something unheard of happen that got covered up? There are so many unanswered questions at hand, and it seems like no matter how many times we ask them, we would never get answered. Now I'm wondering what other missing things are underwater that we would never be able to understand how they got there, the same way we may never understand this creature. Number 7. Possible mermaid. Sometime around 2014, a group of scientists were in their submarine admiring the school of fish floating above them. They weren't doing any deep scientific research, so they weren't hoping to discover something new, but something new was ready to discover them. A strange humanoid creature jumped out of nowhere and hit the screen of their submarine. At first, the scientists thought it was a malfunction or a large fish colliding with the glass, but the shape was unlike anything they had seen before. Its pale, translucent skin shimmered faintly under the sub's lights, revealing veins that pulsed with a bluish glow. One of the crew members gasped as the creature pressed its webbed hands against the viewport, leaving faint streaks that looked eerily like fingerprints. Its head tilted curiously, its dark, pupilless eyes reflecting the submarine's internal lights like mirrors. The team scrambled to activate the external cameras, trying to record every second, but the visibility was poor. The deep waters of Greenland are known for being murky and unforgiving. The creature hovered for a moment, as if studying them, before flicking its long, muscular tail and darting into the darkness with alarming speed. The sonar briefly picked up a humanoid outline moving erratically through the water before disappearing from detection. One of the researchers swore they heard a low, almost mournful sound echo through the hull, though it could have easily been the groaning of the sub's metal under pressure. When they replayed the footage later, they noticed that the creature's movements were too controlled, too intelligent. It wasn't swimming blindly but circling deliberately. Conspiracy theorists quickly jumped on the story, claiming it could be evidence of aquatic humanoids or an unknown evolutionary branch of humans adapted to the deep. Marine biologists, however, were divided. Some argued it could have been a giant squid or a malformed seal distorted by the underwater lighting. Others weren't so sure, suggesting the encounter might represent an undiscovered species hiding beneath the Arctic ice. The scientists involved refused to release all their footage, citing confidentiality under their research contract, fueling even more speculation. To this day, no one has definitively identified what the team encountered that day beneath Greenland's frozen waters. If you look closely, you would see the hands that look like human hands but are covered in what seems like fish skin. You would also see that as it turns to float away, it has a tail. What kind of sea creature do you think this is? The scientists were not able to gather enough information because the creature didn't wait long enough. So it seems like there is a humanoid creature in Greenland that we know nothing about, and this is just a tip of the iceberg in comparison to what is to come next. Number 5. China's underwater city. There are so many lost things underwater. Phones, cameras, and sometimes even cars. But this time in China, a city was found underwater. This city is called Shechong, and it was a metropolis in China during ancient times, also called the Lion City. This area was once thriving and bubbling with activities, but how exactly did it become submerged in water, and what happened to its residents? Divers who ventured into the depths of Qingdao Lake were stunned when they first discovered the city's towering gates, statues, and intricately carved stone walls still standing as though time itself had stopped. Golden lions, dragons, and ancient Chinese symbols still decorate the city's temples and archways, untouched by modern pollution or decay. Beneath the calm surface of the man-made lake, divers navigate through wide streets lined with preserved buildings that once housed merchants and nobles during the Han and Tang dynasties. The silence underwater is haunting, broken only by the hum of the divers' oxygen tanks as they glide past doorways that haven't been opened in nearly a century. The visibility is surprisingly clear, thanks to the cold, still water that has shielded the structures from erosion. The city lies between 85 and 130 feet below the surface, a ghostly yet majestic reminder of a forgotten era. Archaeologists studying the site say that Cheng's preservation is nothing short of miraculous, with many carvings and wooden beams remaining almost exactly as they were when the city was flooded. For them, this is a living time capsule, offering a rare glimpse into Ming and Qing dynasty urban architecture. The discovery has also sparked tourism interest, with guided diving expeditions now available for those brave enough to explore the submerged marvel. Each visit unveils new details, from intact staircases to engraved memorial tablets, that tell stories of a once vibrant society. Locals even believe the Lion City carries a spiritual energy, protecting the surrounding lake and its ecosystem. Well, it's not bad news, so relax. The Chinese government actually flooded the city in 1959. With the rise of industrialization, they wanted to build a dam for the province, but they could not do that with the obstruction of the Lion City. So they relocated all 300,000 residents that once inhabited the area and flooded it. What is so remarkable about this city is the fact that despite being underwater for almost 100 years, the pillars, walls, and remarkable carvings are still intact. Dare I say that if that area gets cleared again, the city may still be livable. Number 4. Diver almost gets crushed by ship. Diving itself is already an extreme sport, but imagine how extreme it gets when you are about to be crushed by a freighter weighing over 100 tons. Well, that was the story of this diver who was doing his thing in the St. Lucia River. He was most definitely having the time of his life until he was swept away by intense waves. At first, he thought it was just a strong current, the kind that occasionally sneaks up on divers, but then the shadow above him began to grow darker and larger. The rumble of engines vibrated through the water, and before he could react, the looming figure of a freighter appeared above him, blocking out all sunlight. His breathing quickened, bubbles erupting from his regulator as he realized just how close the vessel was. The sound was deafening, like thunder echoing underwater, and he could feel the immense pressure from the ship's displacement pushing him downward. The waves generated by the propellers sent debris swirling around him, disorienting his sense of direction. For a terrifying few seconds, the diver couldn't tell which way was up. He clawed at the rocks, fighting both the undertow and his own panic, his vision narrowing to the faint glow of the river's surface. The metallic hull scraped against the current mere feet above his head, and he felt the suction of the freighter's draft threatening to pull him along. Adrenaline surged through his body as he dug his fingers into the sediment, refusing to let go. Time seemed to stretch endlessly in that moment, every heartbeat echoing like a drum in his chest. The waves weren't formed by the natural movement of the water or even a fish being silly. A large freighter was crashing right on top of the diver and his life flashed before his eyes. With all the strength he could muster, he grabbed onto the rocks at the bottom of the ocean, holding on for dear life. Luckily for him, but unluckily for the freighter, the ship was carried by the currents to the other side of the water while the diver came up for safety. Could have easily become his last diving trip, but he made it through. So you better work on your grip before you attempt to become a diver. And if you think this was intense, then take a deep breath because the next moment is both chilling. Number 3. Biofluorescent marine animals. You have probably heard that all organisms on Earth, including humans, can reflect light. While that seems like a stretch, it has actually been proven, especially for sea animals that live tens of thousands of feet deep in the ocean. A scientist once went diving in the ocean and found a shark that was glowing in the dark, so he decided to go back just to see the creature one more time, but what he saw instead surprised him. We found a host of biofluorescent fish. We found over 200 species. The second dive was unlike anything he had ever experienced. The seafloor seemed alive, glowing in patterns and pulses as if the ocean itself were breathing light. Tiny fish shimmered neon green, eels flickered in waves of orange, and corals seemed to hum with color under the faint beams of the submersible. Some of the creatures used their glow for camouflage, blending perfectly with the surrounding light, while others used it to attract mates or lure unsuspecting prey. The spectacle revealed a side of the ocean that had never been seen by human eyes, a living galaxy beneath the waves. Scientists realized that biofluorescence might play a much larger role in marine communication and survival than previously thought. Cameras specially modified with blue lights and yellow filters captured the glowing display in stunning detail, confirming that fluorescence was widespread among fish families. One of the most fascinating discoveries was how different species glowed in completely unique colors, suggesting an entire hidden language of light among deep-sea creatures. These revelations changed how researchers viewed deep-sea ecosystems, emphasizing how little we truly know about the ocean's hidden inhabitants. Even predators glowed, creating eerie yet beautiful trails through the pitch-black water. Instead of the shark he went to look for, he was greeted by different species of biofluorescent fish. They were lighting up the dark sea, and how they were able to achieve that was incredible. Whenever rays of the sun or any kind of light reaches the bottom of the ocean, they absorb it. Then when they are at a different wavelength, usually a darker place, they emit the absorbed light, making them appear blue, green, or any other color. They are such a fascinating sight to behold. But what of the shark that glows in the dark? The shark is called the kitefin shark. There are more than 50 species of bioluminescent sharks in the sea. One of the scariest is the rare viper shark. Unlike the previous species that we mentioned that use fluorescence to emit light, the kitefin shark emits light through bioluminescence. These sharks are the largest known vertebrate to use bioluminescence. They emit light to ward off predators. So when they absorb and then emit the blue light of the ocean, they are able to blend into the water to be safe from predators. Number 2. Underwater Museum in Cyprus. This scene you are looking at is one of the realest clips you would ever come across on the internet. It is an underwater art museum located off the coast of North Cyprus. It perfectly blends art and life underwater to form this ethereal space. These sculptures weren't built in ancient times and over time become submerged by water. They were built by this art artist Jason DeCaires Taylor. My name is Jason DeCaires Taylor. I'm a sculptor and I specialize in making underwater installations. The museum, known as the Museum of Underwater Sculpture Aya Napa, Musin, features over 90 life-size sculptures placed across the seafloor. Divers and snorkelers visiting the site describe the experience as entering another world, silent, dreamlike, and filled with a haunting sense of calm. Each statue represents a different theme of humanity and nature, from children holding hands to trees reaching toward the light above. As sunlight filters through the water, beams of light dance across the figures, creating an ever-changing masterpiece that feels alive. Over time, marine life has transformed these sculptures into living reefs, with coral and sponges growing over faces, limbs, and structures. Fish dart between the figures, turning this artistic project into a thriving ecosystem. It's a stunning collaboration between human creativity and nature's resilience. Jason designed each sculpture using pH-neutral materials to encourage coral growth and minimize environmental impact. The result is not just art. It's a sanctuary for marine organisms, a statement about conservation, and a reminder of the delicate balance between humans and the sea. After creating the sculptures, they are gently placed underwater and anchored to the ground so they don't drift away. The sculptures mimic life on land, but what truly makes it fascinating is how sea animals interact with them. Sea creatures have placed algae and other water organisms on them that give off an ancient feel. The beautiful array of fishes and sea organisms that surround the creations show just how amazing life underwater can get. It's truly fascinating just how much art can look good anywhere. Would you like to visit this underwater museum in Cyprus if you had the opportunity? Number 1. Woman gets attacked by shark. A powerful creature bursts into view, attacking her without mercy. If you think getting attacked by a ship is bad, what would you say about getting attacked by a shark in freezing water when you are all alone? That is exactly what happened to this woman, and how she managed to make it through is something that deserves to be celebrated. So this woman, who is also a diver, went swimming in a cold Canadian river. The water was icy enough to sting her skin, visibility was poor, and the silence underwater felt eerie and suffocating. Moments before the attack, she had been marveling at the way the light cut through the murky green water, unaware that a dark shadow was gliding just beneath her. When she first sensed movement, she thought it was a log drifting downstream, until the log suddenly twisted with terrifying speed. The shark lunged forward, its jaw snapping shut around her leg, sending a wave of pain through her body. Panic set in as she thrashed and screamed into her regulator, her blood clouding the freezing water. She fought back with desperate kicks, trying to hit the shark's snout the way divers are trained to do in emergencies. Her heart pounded as she realized the creature wasn't letting go, and every second underwater felt like an eternity. Against all odds, she managed to push herself toward the surface, but the current was strong and the cold made her limbs sluggish. The other divers nearby saw the crimson bloom spreading through the water and raced toward her, forming a frantic rescue effort. They pulled her onto a nearby raft and began first aid, wrapping her wounds as she trembled uncontrollably from shock and cold. Medics later said that if they had arrived even a minute later, she might not have survived the blood loss and hypothermia. Somewhere in the shadows was a creature waiting to devour her stealthily but quickly. This creature, which was a shark, approached her and latched onto her skin with its teeth. The water was covered in blood as she fought for her life. She was lucky that there were other divers in the area who came to her aid and got her medical attention. The minute we as humans set foot in the water, we are at the bottom of the food chain. So be careful out there when you are plunging in rivers, because you never know what might be coming to get you. Which of these videos did you find the most disturbing? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more fascinating discoveries. See you in the next video.